It's a pleasure to be here. I have the honor of opening up the summit, so welcome to the Sports Innovation Summit. I was here last year representing Adidas in my previous innovation role, and I was presenting the digital ball. Now I've moved on to a new adventure. I'll be moving to Under Armour in September, so something new and fun. But I'd like to talk to you today about innovation and innovation culture in general. Now, it's a big topic, it's a complex topic. Arnaud and I were joking simply because it's the broadest topic that we could possibly have chosen. We have a bet going to see if I will actually be under 20 minutes. Hopefully I will. I've seen people talk about this for an hour and a half, 2 hours at a time. My goal today is simply to give you guys a little bit of insight, a few things to take away, to make things as simple as possible, not that they're super complex, but to make things as simple as possible so that you can understand, well, what is innovation culture and what are some things that we can do to innovate around. You've no doubt moved to a new country, some of you, moved to new cities, moved to new jobs. You understand the difficulty of getting into a new culture. You understand that that can mean success or failure. It's the same thing with innovation. You have to create the right environment. You have to have the right recipe to ensure success. In 1998, I was with Adidas, and I learned shoemaking. I'm a shoemaker by trade. And they basically told me, okay, you're going to China. You're moving to China, and you have to go work in a shoe factory and make shoes. I said, okay. I got on a plane, and fine, new country, I knew that would be difficult. New city, I knew that would be difficult. The most difficult thing for me was the work environment, was working in that new environment and trying to figure out what success was, how to be successful there. I couldn't communicate with the people I was working with all the time. Some of them spoke English, some of them didn't. So I really had to create my own circumstances for success. And that experience helped me in the future. It was one of the hardest things I've ever done, but it really shaped how I look at creating culture in the future for teams, for innovation, and just in general. So in my innovation life, I knew that I needed to create a culture to have the most success. And I put a lot of things in place. Now, let's start to talk about why innovation. Now, very, very simply, you look at this chart, you see probably the best example ever of revenues with Apple in 2014, and then going back all the way to 2009. Innovation drives profit and growth. Very simple. That's what shareholders look at. That's what CEOs look at. It's the bottom line. 70% of CEOs have designated innovation as one of the top 3 priorities, as a key to success for their brand. Now, that's pretty obvious. Now, for consumers, it's all about making your life easier. Innovation makes your life frictionless. It makes things new for you. Now, that can also mean something different. Now, I've worked with athletes all over the world, made soccer shoes in particular for athletes all over the world, professional all the way down to amateurs. And we try to help them perform at the highest levels. And when you're sitting in front of a 19, 20, 21, 22-year-old guy and you're asking them, well, how does this shoe feel? And how does it feel when you play in it? And what about your performance? They give you some feedback, but they always tell you about their emotion. Oh, I like this color, or I like that. And even if it's the same shoe that I gave them last week, but a different color, they'll say they don't like it because, oh, well, this one's blue. So this just goes to show you how important the emotionality is in innovation. Most people think, well, it's about engineering, it's about price, it's about quality, it's about building something in that vein. Equally important is emotion. Sociologists have shown that, yes, we purchase things because of price and quality, but emotion drives a significant amount of our purchases. I'm sure many of us have made an emotional purchase, a car, a watch, shoes. I guarantee everyone has. when we think about creating innovative products or innovative services, we have to think in that way as well. We have to balance out that price, that quality, that product, as well as the emotionality of what it drives. Now, what is innovation? There are many, many definitions, and I'm sure a lot of people will come up to me and say, well, innovation is this and innovation is that. And it can mean many things. It can mean something new. It can mean a product that solves a problem. As I said before, something that makes your life easier, something that makes your life frictionless. It can also mean, and one of my favorite definitions is simply, it changes your life. Innovation changes your reality. It makes you behave in a different way. Now, that graph that you saw from Apple before, the pace of innovation is moving very, very quickly. And 10 years ago, those products that Apple is making nearly 70% of their revenue didn't exist. So you have to innovate at a very high pace. And when you innovate at a high level and you change people's lives, you see the result from a revenue perspective. Who would have thought here that this motion, the swipe, is now something that everybody in the world knows how to do? That changed your life. First it was typing with your thumbs. We're still doing that, but now the swipe has become the predominant thing. That's changed our behavior. I'm sure there's some of us in here, because I know I have tried to swipe the screen of their laptop at times because you forget. You've done it so many times. It changes your behavior, and that's what innovation does. It gives you new experiences. It completely changes your life. And I use that first iPhone from 2007 because it really did change how we look at things. Now, there are many types of innovation, and if you look up there and you see product offering, services, things of that nature, studies have shown that most of the innovation that we think of and most of the innovation that is done is in that area. But there are many, many other types of innovation. And Doblin, which is an innovation consultancy, has come up with this 10 types chart. Anybody that's done any innovation has probably seen this chart. They basically say that if you do 5 or more, you combine 5 or more types of these innovation, you're going to have a successful product. And that's hard. It's very hard because we don't think that way. And oftentimes when we think of innovation, we think of the better mousetrap, the next product. But when you combine a product and a service, or you combine a product, a service, and connectivity, you combine a product, a service, connectivity, and profit, when you start to combine all those things, you create new experiences and you have a greater degree of success. Now, how do we innovate? And this is another, we start to talk about strategy, and I'm going to keep it very, very high level again. There are 3 different types. This comes from BCG. This was a strategy that they had put together, and they said companies fall into 3 different areas. They're either need seekers, market readers, or technology drivers. Now, the need seekers are focusing on consumers' unmet needs. What do you want? What do you desire? What do you need in your life? Market readers look at the markets and identify opportunities of where to find white spaces, what hasn't been created yet, or where can I go in and put a new product. And technology drivers create those next generation technologies to solve your problems. Now, there are companies that fit into each one of these bubbles, but really, if you combine them all, you start with that need seeking, you move into that market reading, and then you go into that technology driving, you're going to have a lot of success. And it's not easy. A lot of people don't think that way. As I said before, if you look back at that 10 types, even coming from the brand that I was at, or working in that consumer goods industry, it's about product. I always think about my phone. I always think about my car. I think about those things. But it's also around the services in that vein as well. Super simple, almost ridiculously simple, but it's about the team. Ed Catmull from Pixar, the president of Pixar and Walt Disney Productions, and he basically says, hire people that are smarter than you. Elon Musk of Tesla and PayPal and SpaceX, and he basically says, people are more important than patents. Build the right team. Understand who do you need to get on the bus, who do you need to get off the bus. It's extremely important. One of my early jobs with the company, I was living in Germany. I worked with a German, on our team, a guy from Holland, a Spaniard, a Frenchman, and the debates that we had were amazing, diverse, different opinions. We would have never gotten that if we would have combined 5 Americans or 5 Germans. So the diversity of the group is very, very important. Now, fast forward to innovation. One of my first innovation jobs, when I interviewed the incumbents, the team that I was going to lead, they all had advanced degrees that were significantly more advanced than what I had had. And they were all very much smarter than me, and that was fantastic. I needed that. I put together a diverse team to build the best products ever. And it was okay that they were all smarter than me. Now, what we found as well is that the engineers that we had, the sports scientists that we had, the designers that we had were all fantastic. And I'll talk about this in a little while, but there are other people in your team, that diversity that you can fill. Things like anthropologists, things like storytellers. We've worked with psychologists in the past. We've worked with sociologists. We've worked with neuroscientists. There's a lot of different areas that you can go into that can bring you new insights, things that you really haven't thought of, especially from a psychological perspective, to understand the why of making the products that you make. I know it sounds very, very simple, but you get into the day-to-day of making your products and you forget about those things sometimes. The next part, again, sounds very fundamental, but have a plan. Now, your business has a plan of where you want to go, and it can be a grandiose vision. Again, I'll use Elon Musk with SpaceX. They want to colonize Mars. Uber wants to eliminate car ownership or reduce car ownership. HBO is looking 10 years into the future to understand what entertainment is like. Ford, at the Consumer Electronics Show and all their new rollouts with their cars, they're talking about mobility, but they're also talking about connectivity within mobility, so software and apps. So they're setting these grandiose visions of where they want to go, and this gives your team a compass. Again, Business 101. But from an innovation perspective, if you can give those engineers, those storytellers, those psychologists, those sports researchers a direction to go into, and then from an innovation perspective, give them the guardrails of where within your market, within your consumers, to then build, that's when you start to have success. And with my team, it was as simple as a one-pager. They had one page at their desk where they knew. And we've all had this. I know I've had this. I know my teams have had it. You get lost sometimes. You get lost in the day-to-day. Or you're working out a problem and you don't know which way to go. You have that compass. You have that direction to help you. And it's as important from a specifically innovation perspective as it is from just a general business perspective. This is one of my most important ones, know your consumer. We've done a ton of work around that. And I can point to everyone in here to say, do you know who your consumer is if you're running your business? How much do you really know? Do you know where they shop? Do you know what they eat? Do you know how often they shop? Do you know how much they spend? Do you know what they like about your products? Do you know what they hate about your products? Do you know where they have the most problems? Do you know what time of day they go to shop? There's thousands of questions that you can ask. The more that you know your consumer, the better you can build products for them. The better you can understand what the challenges they have in their life are. A very simple statement, and I'd love for you guys to walk away with this, is insight before innovation. It's very easy to say, oh, we have this idea to create this thing, but we need to understand the why of it. Who wants it? Why would they want it? What will it do for them? How will it make them feel when they're using our product? And oftentimes, there's simple questions we forget to answer. We forget to ask them, and we forget to answer them as well. So I encourage everyone here, in terms of building product or innovating, is dig deep into the consumer profiling. Understand who they are. You'll find out more than you can possibly know, and it'll make your life significantly more simple. I found that we were spending, and I'm sure everybody has this, you spend a lot of time in the office. You spend a lot of time looking at a computer. Yes, you can get information on the internet, you can get reports, but until you go out and sit at retail or sit at the pitch and watch what a kid does when they bring their bag up. What do they take out first? How many shoes do they have in their bag? Do they do anything with them? When they go to retail, what do they pick up first? Where do they go? What do they ask the sales associate? You can go and just watch and learn immense amounts of information. You don't even have to ask them. This is one that I'm very passionate about, and it's a huge area to continue to learn. The next one that overlays with this is about the trends. Now, many companies may not have trend groups. You can buy trend information. You can also see a lot of it online. You can understand what's happening in the world, in the digital world, the Internet of Things, connectivity. How does that apply to my business? If I'm selling groceries, or I'm making shoes, or I'm selling cable service, how does that help me? How does that hurt me? What can I do with it? Manufacturing. Look at 3D printing. 3D printing is poised to change the way manufacturing is in the future. Just demographics in general, generational. Do you know that Gen Z is one of the first generations to have sustainability as one of their core values? So what does that mean to me? If I'm making soccer shoes, how should I make them in the future? Should I make them differently? Should I attach a different service? Should you be able to give it back to me in the end? Should it melt into the ground and go back to nature? So there's a lot of these things that we need to understand, and specific generations as well that we're building towards. If we know what these specific things are, we can build product for them. This is also one of my favorite slides. It's very simple. It's just about make stuff. Now, making is about creativity. Making is going out there and building something. And making can also be about just simply play. IDEO talks a lot about this. In all their conference rooms, they have these little carts that have scissors and paper and glue, and they make prototypes. They make them right there. If they have an idea, well, let's go make it. And I encourage my teams, and it's a very simple thing, is if you have an idea, what I found myself doing later on in my career was I would go back to that factory in Asia and ask them to make it. And I said, well, why aren't I making it? When you make those products, you know what the problems could be. Then you can go out and test them yourself, or go out and test them immediately. You create that minimum viable product to get out into the marketplace, to find out what does my product mean to a consumer? Does it work? Does it not work? What are the things that I need to improve? And then you iterate. You continue to improve it over and over again. Now you see that with apps. You see that with software. That's how you get to market quickly. And as I said, innovation, the pace is very, very fast, and we've got to continue to move very, very quickly. So the more that you can get people to make, the more that they'll learn, and the more that they'll be more engaged. Now, I don't know if any of you have done the Marshmallow Challenge. I don't know if it's how prevalent it is. I know it's done a lot in the corporate world. The Marshmallow Challenge is an interesting exercise on creativity. You get one marshmallow. You create these teams of 3 to 5 people. Each team gets a marshmallow, 20 pieces of raw spaghetti, 1 yard of string, and 1 yard of tape. And they have 18 minutes. And each team has to create the tallest freestanding structure. They can't attach it to a table. They can't glue it to anything. It can't hang from something. Now, it's incredible. I've done this with teams. I've done this with designers, marketing people, developers, and to watch them, how the dynamics of the team, how they interact, and then how they make their tower, and to see who can create the tallest one. Now, the research shows that the group that makes the tallest tower are children. And the reason for that is because when you watch the engineers and the managers and the developers and all those guys making it, they're planning. They're like, well, if we did this, so let's discuss this and let's figure it out. They spend all their time planning. When you give that to kids, they start making. They immediately just start making. They start iterating. They don't think about it. It's about immense creativity. So if we can impart that on our teams, of course we need that balance. You need to plan. You can't just not plan. But to have that creativity and to get people to make, you'll find amazing results. Now this goes with the previous slide, and I love this because you probably have seen this, like this is not the kind of failure that you want, but in innovation we certainly encourage failure. If you're making stuff and you're going out and testing it yourself and you're breaking it, failure is good. You learn from it. We've found immense solutions and new things from failing, oftentimes. And I encourage everyone that is working in the innovative world to not celebrate failure, but to encourage trying. And when they fail, be okay with it. Now, when you fail, you find those new solutions. And over again, in the future, you're going to learn something. I guarantee it. And it's happened many times in my teams where we said we never would have gotten to that ever if we wouldn't have failed. No, I'm already over. It's my second to last slide. Now, to me, the most important part of this whole thing is, what's your story? Now, story is one of the most powerful forces in our life. It's one of the most powerful influencers in our life. Story takes us on a journey. Stories are emotional. We read stories to our kids. We remember stories. Stories are movies. Stories are songs. Stories are the things we share with one another. When you get to that level where you start to share stories, you're onto something. You've hit it. Now, Astro Teller, he's in charge of Google X, which is the most audacious department of Google, of their moonshot projects where they make the really big things. And he basically says, innovations are stories. If you don't have a story, you don't have an innovation. And technical advances are not stories. And as I said, stories are emotional. There's a wonderful blog, and I encourage all of you to go to it. It's called The Story of Telling. It's run by a woman named Bernadette Jiwa, and I worked with her as a consultant on storytelling. And she says, people don't buy what you do. They buy how you make them feel. And one of her other quotes, which is fantastic, and I'll never forget it, is, when you buy that product or you have that innovation that really resonates with you, it makes you fall in love with yourself just a little bit more. It's one of my favorite quotes ever, because everyone that hears that, you know that intrinsically. I got these nice little camo shoes, and they're not innovative, but when I got them, I was like, I feel pretty good. I actually wore them out of the store. So the more story that you can create, the better. And I'll leave you with a story. So I live in Portland, Oregon now, and Portland has a lot of homeless people. Hurts my heart to see homeless people. And I do whatever I can. I'm going to break up on this story. I do whatever I can to help them, to give them money or to help them with services. And I recently read an article about a guy named Sam, I'm going to get his name wrong, Serbalis. I have to double check that, Serbalis. And he did a lot of work in the homeless community, did a lot of research, 30 years. And he found that the current system of homelessness was not working, where you have to kick your addiction first, and then you get on your medication and do your counseling, and then you get your home. And he found that those people were cycling, at least 30% of those people were cycling back through the system again and again and again. They couldn't stabilize their life. So he started a program called Housing First. And it's based, and this is why I said in the beginning, simple, very simple. Innovation doesn't have to be complex. His idea was give people houses first, and then put them on the programs, and then give them medication. And what he found was, and they did it in Salt Lake City in Utah, they did it in New York, they did it in New Orleans, in multiple cities, it has eradicated or reduced homelessness significantly. And in some places like New York, where they were spending $20,000 a year per homeless person, they reduced that to $12,000 and even giving them homes. In Salt Lake City, they were spending $40,000 a year on each homeless person, and they've reduced that significantly. Now that story sticks with me. I'll remember that forever. And that innovation was so simple. And yes, I haven't talked about innovation process, or haven't talked about research that you need to do, all that stuff. But if you remember these simple things and you ask that question of, what's your plan? Where do you want to go? What's your vision? Who is it that you're targeting? What do you really know about them? And then in the end, what's your story? And if you get people, the best thing is to hear somebody telling someone else your story. That is the most fantastic thing. And you know you've hit on your innovation. So I lost the bet. I'm over 20 minutes. But thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of the summit.